Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. Using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way for you to exit highly appreciated assets such as cryptocurrency, businesses, real estate, high-end primary homes, so you can create and preserve more wealth, all tax deferred. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, and wealth minds in the world, and sometimes crypto minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I am excited about our next guest. He is out of the great state of New York, and he is focused on helping you to create a comprehensive wealth plan. And he specializes in working with business owners, CEOs, and entrepreneurs. He's a chartered retirement planning counselor, accredited portfolio manager, advisor, and holds an MBA in banking and finance with 20 years of experience. He has appeared on Fox, NBC, and his financial insights have been featured in publications including the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Fortune, Wealth Management Magazine, and many others. So much more. Please welcome to the show with me, Rocco Carriero. Rocco, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely excited to dive in to learn a little bit about matching your financial resources to your family goals. We're also going to talk a little bit about don't let the capital gains tax tail wag the dog. We'll also touch on that. But before we go there, Rocco, would you give our listeners a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Sure. Well, give everybody kind of a perspective. Well, I've been in the wealth management business working with successful entrepreneurs for probably close to 25 years now. And the people that we've been working with, which are business owners, there's three areas of their life which are really important. It's their businesses, their themselves as an individual, and of course their families. And that tied in with the book that I had written that takes a look at all three areas of a business owner's life. We specialize in helping business owners get from point A to point B through using our three chords approach. And I'm excited to be here to talk with you on the two topics that you had mentioned.
Fantastic. And before we go to there, Rocco, I want to go back one step and help our listeners and myself get to know you a little bit better. I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life to be a blessing and help to others. Some people call them strengths. Some people call them superpowers. But I'm curious, what are those one or two gifts that you believe you were given, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
I would say is my ability to listen. I'm a really good listener, and I'm able to kind of put myself into the shoes of the people with the challenge they may have, and then be able to provide them with solutions. So listening certainly is one of my special gifts that I've been blessed with. And the other area that I've been blessed with is being able to being able to understand the who's that can make the hows happen. So being able to, if a person shares an issue or a challenge, I'm able to find them a resource to help them solve the problem. So I would say that those are the two.
Fantastic. So let's dive right into the show for today, and it's matching your financial resources to your family goals. So Rocco, what's the number one secret to doing just that?
The number one secret is identifying and creating a financial plan. So knowing what's really important to yourself from a financial standpoint. So step one, and probably the most important thing, is the commitment to develop a strategic financial plan.
And by commitment, break that down, right? Because that could be interpreted in a couple different ways. But what are the more successful clients that you work with? What is it about their commitment, and what does that look like in step-by-step action?
You know, I started using the word commitment a few years back because I saw the difference between the people that were really committed to doing planning on an ongoing basis and the people that kind of like the idea of it, but weren't really committed to it. And the people that were committed to it did significantly better than the ones that kind of had 1 foot in, 1 foot out, or that weren't really clear on their overall plans. And so people that are saying, okay, everybody's thinking, oh yeah, I have a financial plan, or I'd like to do a financial plan. But the people that say they're going to do it, show up to the meetings, get all the data together, do what's required of them, their must-dos, those are the ones that really knock the ball out of the park.
What's the biggest false belief for those who are maybe not as committed as they should be? What's the one thing you're going to help them overcome?
That they haven't done everything as good as they thought they have. We've sat with lots of people that said, I've done everything the way I should do it. I know how I'm all laid out. I know how I'm allocated. I've done a great job. Everything is fine. And once you start peeling back the onion, many times they've missed many parts of the most important areas of the financial plan. Even a simple thing. I have a little story to tell you. I'm not sure if we have time to kind of discuss it, but even things as simple as beneficiary updates. There was a case that I heard of where a guy, in his early 20s, got a job working, I think, at General Electric. Gets married to his high school sweetheart, sets up his pension accounts and things like that, signs off on his beneficiary to his wife. Year later, so the guy has a great career at GE, and a year later, his marriage didn't work out with his high school sweetheart, moves on. 10 years later, gets remarried. 40 years later, he retires from GE, passes away suddenly, unfortunately, right after he retires. And as the company sent in all of their documents to get the pension payouts, what ended up by happening was that because the guy never changed his beneficiary from his first wife from 40 years ago, his first wife, they called the first wife and said, obviously there was a misunderstanding here. They thought it was a big joke, like, oh, obviously the person's going to understand. And it happened to be over $4 million worth of securities and assets. And she said, well, listen, second wife, I was the first wife. He wanted me to have it, obviously, because he had 40 years to change it, and he never did. And so, that somebody that thinks that they have all the beneficiaries in line, you need to look at all these different things, and you need to look at them on an ongoing basis because anything could happen.
Wow, what a story! That would be a challenging phone call to receive for sure. For the second wife, for the first wife, it might be
it's like winning the lottery.
It's like winning the lottery, right? So really, really interesting. Okay, so beneficiary updates. So something as simple as just making sure that you're staying organized and you're and perhaps even funding your living trust, right, for probate stuff. You're actually taking the assets. Just because you form the living trust doesn't mean anything's going to pass properly. You got to make sure you properly fund that. So
we see that a lot. We see that a lot where people do an amazing job of meeting with estate planning attorneys, creating all these wonderful documents, but it is not the law firm's responsibility to make sure that those trusts get funded. Many times people think, oh, okay, great. I did the documents, I got the documents in hand, and everything will follow the path of the documents. But if you don't work with your financial institution to make sure that these trusts get funded, right? So the titling of these different accounts get changed to your trust, then they will not be implemented, and it will follow whether you had a TOD or whatever else, a transfer on death or whatever other direction that tied in with the that account.
Yeah, so it's the commitment on actually seeing through what needs to be done and looking at it on an ongoing basis. Is that a fair summary so far, Rocco?
Ongoing basis is critical, right? We like to tell people every 3 to 5 years, you got to go back through all these different things. We look at people's beneficiaries on an annual basis, but we would tell you, we got to review your estate planning documents. You got to review these things every 3 to 5 years just to make sure that everything's in line with what you think the way that you think it should be, the way it should go.
Excellent. And by the way, you can learn more about Rocco Carriero at RoccoCarriero.com. And so, Rocco, that's really great. Now let's connect it to the family, right? Because we're talking about matching your financial resources to your family goals. I mean, obviously, part of the family goals is to pass on your financial legacy, not in probate, right? Not through probate court, but in a way that's through a living trust. So it gets seamlessly. You could save some there, and your finances actually go, your wealth goes to where you want it to go. That'd be part of your family goals, but maybe you can touch on maybe some more of the nuances when it comes to matching your resources to your family goals.
Absolutely. So, having family meetings, talking about these different things, really, really important. Understanding, being very clear as to the way and the way you would like your assets to flow. Super important. Because I can tell you, if you don't have a plan, somebody else is going to create their own plan with your assets. And most of the people that we work with, they've worked really hard to accumulate large sums of dollars. They would like to see their families utilize the resources in a responsible way. And there's no way for your family to really know what your true wishes are unless you tell them. And you could tell them verbally, you could document it on paper. Because a lot of times families kind of wonder and say, how would mom or dad or grandma, whoever, how would they want me to actually handle the resources? And if they don't know that, they're just going to do whatever they think is right. And, sometimes that's the right decision, but many times it's not in line with what the asset accumulator would have wanted.
Yeah. So it's actually just, let's just say having a big family business meeting in a sense, right? We're talking about assets, things that maybe are sensitive, things that can be challenging. I can imagine some people and folks don't want to have to deal with the stress, right? Or want to have to deal with those tough conversations, but it's being, I guess, mature enough and committed enough, right? To having these difficult, crucial conversations, right? So that no one's caught off guard. Is that a fair summary?
It is a fair summary, and it is a very uncomfortable conversation, but you can utilize the work of a third party person. So whether it's your financial advisor, your accountant, your attorney, a trusted professional that the rest of the family trusts as well to facilitate the meeting, to have the conversation. Those work the best in my experience.
Perfect. And obviously that's probably something that you do, right? For your clients.
It is something those are some of the best meetings where we get the family at the table. And the work that's done at those meetings is really life-changing for many of these families.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a good service. And it's connecting your good listening skills as well as understanding the who's, right? And the dots and connecting everyone together. And it's part of understanding what it means for the family legacy, what it means for everyone else who's maybe inheriting different things. My wife and I just started watching the show Succession. And my buddy from New York, we were just in New York a couple months ago for a trip, and he said, "Hey, check out this show." And it's interesting, and it's something that we all should be thinking about because that's part of being a good steward with the wealth that we've accumulated and earned to be able to pass it on well. Okay, excellent. So, anything else about matching your financial resources to your family goals besides obviously making sure you're committed to annual reviews and planning and ongoing setting up your beneficiaries correctly? And second, making sure you're communicating with the family. Anything else that you would add to matching it to your family goals?
I would say, one of the good things in being a good steward of wealth is, so a lot of times we talk with clients and they have this idea of doing philanthropic type work or giving some dollars away, but they just don't know where to go. And so really thinking about, are there groups and organizations that you'd like to help, that you'd like to make a difference in while you're still alive or after you pass away, is another really important area. And doing it from a family standpoint is really great as well. You can get the whole family involved if you want, or you can just do it yourself. But another thing that I've really seen add a tremendous amount of value and enjoyment to people's life is where they kind of work on this, where they think about part of their investments, part of their assets going to different causes to help make a difference while they're alive or after they're gone.
Fantastic. Absolutely love that part of it as well. The bigger purpose in giving back to causes that your clients believe in. That's fantastic. Now let's shift a little bit to the capital gains tax part of the show where we're talking strategies, tax deferral. And let's start with the part of the topic at hand. Don't let the cap gains tax tail wag the investment dog. So Rocco, what does that mean? And can you give us maybe a sample and then maybe some strategy behind how you help your clients make a good decision on that?
Sure, absolutely. Making decisions purely because of a capital gains tax increase is, in my experience, has never been the right decision for assets that are likely to continue to appreciate over time. So making a decision because there's an extra 3% capital gains tax on there, saying, okay, we need to sell, we need to do something different because we need to sell the asset, the family jewel, or the stock we've had or land we've had in the family for a long time, because capital gains are going to go up by 3%, and that's going to equate to another X amount of dollars. And I can tell you a story about it. There's a family that we work with that they're large landowners here in the Hamptons. When we had the additional, I think it was the Affordable Care Act, that the additional 3.8% that got added on back in, I think it was at 2011, was it? Or I forgot the year. But a family that we work with had, something like $10 million worth of land. and they rushed to make a decision to sell the land to avoid the additional, on 10 million, it was like an additional $380,000 more they were going to have to pay in tax. And they thought they were making a genius decision by saving $380,000 of additional taxes that if they sold now, that they wouldn't have to pay later if they sold the land. Well, fast forward here, 10, 11 years, that $10 million plot of land is now worth probably $25 million. So focusing on the tax piece and making the decision to sell now with a long-term asset just to avoid some additional taxes is not always the best decision with certain assets. Does that help give listeners a kind of an idea when looking at?
It really does.
Yep.
Yeah, it really does. And it makes me think about the biggest frustration with the 1031 exchange, right, and capital gains tax deferral for a lot of our clients who are in investment real estate and overpaying for properties. And that's what happened in the 2008 crash, 2005, 6, 7.
I saw that.
They love being a seller, but they hated being a buyer, but they felt like they had to make the decision to purchase because they had a 30 to 50% in cap gains tax and depreciation recapture. And so they rolled and rolled and rolled. Music stopped, and some people lost half, some people lost all, some people had to crawl their way out over the next 5 years.
So true.
Because they had too much debt, not enough liquidity, not enough diversification. Now we found a solution to that. It's called the Deferred Sales Trust. What's unique about it is you can sell high, and then you can diversify into stocks, bonds, mutual funds. You can put it back into passive or active real estate. You can do hard money lending. You can start a business with it, all tax deferred, without having to take on debt, without having to do any rush shotgun weddings, right? We call it the 45-day engagement, 180-day wedding, because that's what the 1031's time restrictions have, whereas the Deferred Sales Trust has none of that. So I'm curious, Rocco, have you ever heard of that before? Or any thoughts on being able to sell and diversify at these high prices?
I really like this strategy that you're talking about. I'm not familiar with it. I've heard of 1031 exchanges. I've heard of opportunity zones, but the actual trust itself, I'd love to learn more about myself. So just for clarification, say somebody's selling a company for $30 million, pretty much all going to be zero cost basis. They've had the company for 50 years. They're able to sell the company, then put money into this trust and then not pay the taxes, or just basically, obviously pay, but just defer the taxes for down the road. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly what I'm saying. It's precisely. And so we actually just did a business sale for an owner out of Alabama. He sold a $2.6 million business, and he had two partners who wanted to buy him out, and he had zero basis. And so it wasn't eligible for a 1031 exchange, first of all. And he wasn't ready and willing and able to really want to give it to all the way to charity. So he used the Deferred Sales Trust. We like to say it's like the CRT, except no C is required. He parked it into the Deferred Sales Trust, and then he has used some of the funds to partner with him on a deal to build 70 multifamily units in Tennessee, all tax deferred. So now some of the funds are stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Some of it can be in insurance. We like to just help the client with the financial advisors that we work with. My role as a trustee, we work with financial advisors like Rocco, across the U.S., based upon their risk tolerance, a wealth plan, but it's a tax deferred wealth plan, right? And it can solve a lot of challenges. But you're right, for the gentleman who's selling a $30 million asset, they're looking not only at capital gains tax, but they're also looking at estate tax challenges. And so we're also able to use the Deferred Sales Trust. We call it 2.0 DST, to move it outside the taxable estate. And that's powerful too, because the growth of that is also outside the taxable estate. So it's been going around for 25 years. I wish I would have learned about it earlier than 2009. Unfortunately, I was at Marcus Millichap in 06 to 07, 08. I didn't know about it, and people were doing 1031 exchanges and overpaying. We wish we would have known. But now we know. We try to teach everybody. By the way, if you're listening to this for the first time, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to learn more and get our free ebook. We also have a mastermind that happens every Friday. We just closed our first cryptocurrency deal about 60 days ago. We've closed 2 of those since, and we're talking all things Deferred Sales Trust, cryptocurrency, tax deferral, and ways to grow your wealth. But yeah, that's how it works, Rocco. It's pretty cool. We're pretty excited about it. And but any thoughts on that?
I want to learn more. I'd like to learn more. So yeah, I'd love to understand this a little bit better and see how. Now, I assume that these have been IRS tested and in the trenches and all that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's been over a dozen no change IRS audits. It's been 3 formal audits. It's never been on an IRS watch list or dirty dozen. There is a private letter ruling. All of those audits were no change audits. The biggest one was in California. It was a $125 million deal. And so it's batting 1,000 after thousands of closes. And the part of it, why it is, Rocco, and you probably know the tax code, it's IRC 453. It's just an installment sale. And so as a seller, you can carry back paper. Like, for example, that $30 million business owner that you might know who's selling, he could technically carry back 100% financing for a buyer. He's not going to pay tax on what he hasn't received yet. It's in a deferral state. The reason you don't typically do a traditional installment sale is because A, he wants to sell the business and move on. B, he might have to foreclose on it. And this is where the Deferred Sales Trust is really unique in that it becomes a third-party trust where he actually sells the property, the company to the trust prior to the trust selling it to the ultimate buyer. And the cash goes to the trust and the seller receives a promissory note. And it's set to pay him over time, slowly. And as it pays him, he pays tax, ordinary income tax on the interest payments. If he dips into principal, it's capital gains tax. And so that's the short answer, but he's no longer tied to the old asset. And now the collateral that's in the trust can be secured against multiple assets. Again, and you can dollar cost average. And we have to say you can put it into safe harbor. Because a lot of our clients, they've made their wealth and they're part of the baby boomers and they're going, look, I don't necessarily need more wealth. I need to preserve it. I need to, figure out a way to pass it in a responsible way through living trust and getting outside the taxable estate. But I feel trapped by this big business because of the tax, or this big public or private stock holding I have, or cryptocurrency, or it also works for big old primary homes that aren't eligible for a 1031 exchange. And so, yeah, again, that's what it works for, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense, and I'm definitely excited to learn more about this. Now, any restrictions in any states or anything like that?
Nope, all 50 states, and it can also be someone who's not even a U.S. citizen. If they have assets that are subject to U.S. capital gains tax, it's even more powerful for them because they typically only have a $60,000 exemption on the estate tax for non-U.S. citizens, whereas a U.S. citizen has 22 million married, 12 million single. So it's even more powerful for people who are outside the U.S. who own stuff in the U.S. But yeah, it works for all 50 states. And anyone who wants to learn more, they can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That being said, are you ready for the lightning round?
I'm ready. Can I ask one more quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Quick question. So how does this have to be set up before somebody sells their company?
It does. The timing is crucial, right? In fact, we want to make sure that the buyer hasn't removed all contingencies. Then we can set up the trust. We work on a no cost, no obligation basis so that if for any reason the deal doesn't close, any reason you don't want to do it, no cost. But we do need to set it up prior to the buyer removing all contingencies. This is basically the law of constructive receipt. If it's gone too far, it's too late. But if we set it up prior to, then we can set up deals in 72 hours really fast. But it's emotionally tough. I always tell people to underwrite the exit plan before you actually sell the business or company or asset, because once you get these two involved at the same time, especially for new tax strategies, like emotionally it can be a lot to swallow, right? So we really try to educate as much as we can prior to, but we've done deals very quickly. We close about a deal a week these days. And so, yeah, that's how that works.
All right. Well, just one last question. That's going to be it. So when does the IRS actually collect on the taxes?
So payments are typically made. Most of our clients are taking immediate payments from the trust, like the next month it starts out. And so they're going to be paying interest on that, ordinary income tax on that right away. Right. And then as they dip into principal, and some of them take a big distributions at close too, that's a part of the principal, they'll pay capital gains tax on that. And so it all depends on when they receive it. It's kind of like an IRA in that scenario, Rocco, right?
Or what happens after the person passes away, after the people pass away?
Yeah, if they pass away, it passes inside the living trust, and then the kids can step into their shoes, right, and continue the tax deferral over time.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So this is like in perpetuity. This is
It
like,
can be, yeah, but it's in 10-year increments. So there's a balloon payment due at 10 years, and then it's in 10-year increments. Typically, is how we set it up. It just depends on the net worth of the client and the size of the deal. But yes, the kids, it can continue to go. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Our heads exploded too when we first heard about it. But we would the banks, the qualified intermediaries, the national law firms, all of the deals, the track record, it's all there. It's proprietary, it's protected, and until you know someone who's doing it, you have never heard of it because most people just don't know that this is possible, or they get
yeah.
confused with the Delaware statutory trust, right? They go, oh yeah, I know DSTs, and no, that's a Delaware 1031 where you can sell. It's like a tenant in common. You can move it into to another piece of property with a big corporation. Ours is a deferred sales trust, which is completely separate, part of the tax code, right?
Mhm.
So most people just don't know about it.
Sounds great. Well,
Cool.
I'm definitely going to learn more.
Thank you for asking the questions. That was cool. I appreciate your interest. So let's go into the lightning round now. And so the lightning round is just going to consist of a few questions, Rocco, and just real quick answers. If you could go back to your 25-year-old self, Rocco, what's the one golden nugget you'd make sure to tell yourself to do?
I would say have more kids.
How many kids do you have now?
I have two, and I love them to death. But I wish I had two more.
Yeah, well, I got 5, and we got 2 to 11, and we are at our max. But I'm glad you at least had 2, because I have heard people say I had 1 and I wish I would have had more. Like, I mean, in fact, every person I think I've just about met, and health things aside, right? If they had the health, they say I wish I would at least had 1 more. So I'm glad you at least had 2. What are they doing now, Rocco?
My son is in 7th grade, and my daughter is in 10th grade. They're great kids, and they're a joy, and they're a lot of fun. A lot of fun to be with.
Very cool. Second question: what's the number 1 book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
I would say the book Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. That's a terrific book of identifying the who's in your life that can help you achieve the hows. I would say that book.
Awesome. Next question: what are you most curious about right now?
I'm most curious about I'm actually really curious about the trust that you're talking about. So I want to learn more about that. And I'm most curious about what's going to happen in 2022.
It's going to be a big year, right? I mean, there's so much kind of pent up that could change and big impact. So, and thanks for the curiosity on the Deferred Sales Trust too. Second to last question: what's your favorite leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
I would say never, never, ever quit. That's I think it was Churchill that said that. So it's never, ever, ever quit.
I love Winston Churchill. I love that quote. Last question, Rocco. After all the people you've helped, the businesses you've built, the book you've written. By the way, plug that book here in a minute as well. How do you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new heights?
I would say through planning. I spend a lot of time doing strategic planning, and not only do I do business planning, but I do life planning. I do planning for myself, and I also do planning with my family. And this ensures that I'm trying to get the most out of life, right? We all focus on doing business planning and focused on financial planning, but doing life planning is equally, if not more important than financial planning, in my opinion.
Fantastic. And Rocco, for our listeners who want to get in touch with you, would you remind them one last time what's the best place for them to find you?
Right through my website, which is roccoacarriero.com. That's ROCCOACARRIERO.com.
Rocco, I want to thank you for being on the show. Everyone, I want you to check out his book, 3 Chords Approach. And it's all focused on helping you to live a life and wealth management in a way that is amazing, especially for you business owners out there, right? Making sure that you're leading a balanced life, that you're approaching a business, yourself, and your family in a very, very thoughtful way. Check out 3 Chords Approach. That is the number 3 spelled out, 3 Chords Approach. And Rocco, I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts and talents of listening well to others, understanding the who's, connecting everyone so they can create and preserve more wealth. And I also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to grow your wealth. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to learn more about all of that. And you can also join our free mastermind. It's our cryptocurrency Deferred Sales Trust mastermind. We're trying to make the Deferred Sales Trust very simple, and also teaching you how to use the Deferred Sales Trust for business sales, for real estate sales. We have current clients on there. We have people learning it for the first time. Just go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That happens every Friday at 10 a.m. PST, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to register right now. Hey, thanks everyone for watching the show or listening to the show. We appreciate